right, so my presentation today is what have we learned monitoring Ethereum for the past 6 months. So first, what's in a block? So in the last, since block 5 million, it's been about 90 days. And there's been about 500,000 blocks that have been mined. And the average transactions incorporated into a block is 120. So just show of hands, how many people believe there's 2,000 transactions that have been mined with 10 or less? 2,000 blocks that have been mined with 10 transactions or less. Or, yeah. How about, so how about 5,000? Okay. So there's actually been 14,500 blocks that have been mined with less than 10 transactions, which is about 3% of all blocks mined. So it's the number of transactions in a block is a key component for scalability of the Ethereum network. So it's an interesting fact. Over the last 7 days, there's been about 5 million transactions that have gone across the public Ethereum network. How many people believe that maybe 20%, 30% went to smart contracts? So the actual number was 53.47% of all transactions have gone to smart contracts in the last 7 days. If you go back 6 months, this was 39%. So it just speaks to the success of Ethereum as a smart contracts platform. And if you actually break this down, today, Ethereum's doing $166 million per hour in US dollars being transacted, with 53% of that going to smart contracts. It speaks to where we have been and where we are going, and I think this will continue as a trend. So when you push your transaction on the network, you pay a gas price, and you expect for your transaction to be incorporated into a block, per the incentive structures and the way Ethereum works. So over the last 7 days, that's true 96% of the time. If you take about 3.5% of that, some of that gets, people make mistakes, you have contract failures, what have you. But about 0.25% of your transactions we consider lost. And when we say a lost transaction, we've gone back basically for the last 2 months and we look and we say, okay, well, based on confirmation time, if I submit a transaction to buy something to interact with a smart contract, I expect that to be done in a fairly short period of time. Anything beyond a day, I don't know where my transaction is. For all practical purposes, we believe that that's lost and we count it as lost. And during a normal network activity, it doesn't happen. But when the network gets very, very busy, actually the global memory pool for Geth, even across the network, is FIFO. So you can actually lose transactions off of the end of the memory pool, so they can really be lost. So if you look at this graph, what this is really showing is that the distribution of most transactions actually get completed in a short period of time, but there is transactions that sit out here for 24 days if they didn't incorporate enough gas. So Ethereum was designed to be operate in a trustless environment. And what we mean by trustless is that you can have people operating within the constraints of proof of work, where they're different miners with different strategies and what have you. But you have to remember, incentives do drive behavior. Just like the public internet, Ethereum is continuously under challenge, per se. There's distributed denial of service attacks, there's miner optimization, there's alleged miner collusion, there's hacking and what have you. A key KPI for the instrumentation of the health of proof of work is the number of uncles. There's been a bunch of blog posts, this is not new information here, but if you have greater than 2 uncles per 2 blocks, a 51% attack requires only 38% of the network. This is since block 5 million, so basically the last 90 days, and we can see 4 or 5 times we've kind of encroached upon but have not pierced that number. So my point here is not that Ethereum is not trusted, that's not the point at all. It's that Ethereum continuously is being challenged, just like anything that's on the public internet. And you need to be aware of it. And even more interesting, and there's 24,000 nodes in the public Ethereum network today. Anybody that spins up a new blockchain, they're going to be under this type of attack and under this type of pressure, and they're going to have a lot fewer nodes. They've got big challenges ahead. So you just need to operate with context and understand what is the state and health of things. So there's been a lot of talk about miners today, and throughout the last 6 months. We were in Taipei, and there was some questions. What's the incentives of miners? Are there miner collusion? Are there people mining empty blocks? What strategies do people employ? And when you consider that the total rewards for miners is about $5 billion a year, there's some incentives here. So we went back and we looked since block 5 million, which again is pretty much the last 90 days. We said, what is the actual behavior of different mining pools, and what do we see? So we looked at Spark Pool. You see that the red line is the 120 transactions per block, and you see it's a pretty normal distribution, and Spark Pool actually optimizes to include more transactions per block. If you look at Nanopool, again, it's a pretty normal distribution. However, if you move to somebody like the Ethermine or F2 Pool, you can see that they're operating within proof of work and optimizing their strategy perhaps differently. With the red line being 120 transactions per block, you can see that Ethermine, for example, optimizes to mine less than 120 transactions and may even optimize to mine some empty blocks. Same with F2 Pool. And BitClub Pool clearly does not mine by choice for the less than 100 transactions per block. So there's not that any of these mining pools are operating outside of the constraints of what proof of work allows. It's just there's different strategies being employed by different members. So another interesting thing is when you actually pay to have a transaction completed. So the vertical lines here are blocks. The y-axis is how much you paid in gas. The size of the bubble is how long you waited. The key takeaway here is when the network is not busy, don't overpay for gas, and there's been a lot of blog posts on this, but here you can actually see the distribution of gas prices paid and how long you waited. And sometimes when the network is not busy, uniform confirmation time can happen regardless of what you pay for gas. So today, this morning, Amber Data, we released our platform built for the Ethereum community to provide insights into smart contracts, Ethereum infrastructure with full text search and graph. And we are providing transparency into what's happening in 1.5 million smart contracts today we've indexed. And you can see from an operational context what is happening with the smart contract, the transaction volume into token velocity, token holders, volume by address, inbound uniques, outbound uniques, gas price, market depth per contract, pending, failed, successful, and then full text search across all of the smart contracts currently on chain, and we'll continue to maintain this. We built this, and we think it's super important. This is the type of context you need if you're running a business on chain. Last week you had the Batchoverflow. This is what you would have seen, either looking back to try to triage what happened or what you would see operating in real time of the beauty chain token experiencing the Batchoverflow and having to, alerting to alert you that your contract may be under attack is mission critical, we think, to run and build a business on chain. So again, we launched this morning. We've been in beta for 3 months. We launched this morning and went live with the community version that is free for the Ethereum community and will be. We will not be ad supported. This is a community version for everybody to use to be able to instrument infrastructure, applications, transactions, full text search, and analytics for the entire Ethereum community. So please come check it out. Great.
That was awesome. I really loved the